Farm Week is a production of the Mississippi State University Extension Service.
Today on Farm Week, farmers are cautioned that control of herbicide-resistant weeds is a year-round task.
We'll have highlights from 4-H football day at Mississippi State University.
In Southern Gardening, the Bougainvillea will tell you how to make them bloom in a pot.
In the markets, a big year-to-year drop in cattle placements, while corn gets a neutral report from the government. John Michael Riley explains.
In the feature segment, most of us try to get rid of insects, but there is a need to grow insects for research and commercial sales. Mississippi State University recently hosted its annual International Insect Rearing Workshop. MSU is known around the world for insect rearing expertise.
We had been around the world, some of us. I had been to places all over the world, helping them with their corn work, helping them with their rearing program. And we began to realize, well, there's no formal education, even in entomology departments, anywhere that we are aware of in the world, that teaches people how to rear insects.
So we've got the number, the size.
Hello, all of us at Farm Week want to be the first to wish you a happy Thanksgiving. Good day, I'm Leighton Spann.
And I'm Artis Ford. My favorite holiday of the year is Thanksgiving.
And it's almost here.
Yes, almost, and we wish you a happy one.
Well, even though the harvest is practically done in Mississippi, growers are already making plans for the next year.
Well, Leighton growers at Tuesday's Delta Crop Summit got a preview of the 2013 growing season. Herbicide-resistant weeds were part of that agenda, and growers were cautioned that herbicide-resistant weed control requires a year-round strategy.
So it's constant management, you know, really 12 months out of the year, depending on the weed species, that there's decisions that got to be made. You know, I could give you a scenario for all 12 months of the year where a weed control decision needs to be made.
Even though winter is still coming, Jason Bond told growers at the Delta Crop Summit they should make weed control plans now for the 2013 growing season.
Know where your problems were, know what those problems were, and start putting a plan in place for how you're going to deal with it, you know, when those issues roll back around in April and May.
Tom Eubank says now is the time for winter wheat producers to control herbicide-resistant ryegrass since it can significantly lower yields. Eubank says the best time to control Italian ryegrass in any crop is before the weed emerges. Control strategies are available from Mississippi State University. 28 Mississippi counties are confirmed to have glyphosate-resistant Italian ryegrass. Eubank also warns some areas have Italian ryegrass that's resistant to ALS-type herbicides as well. Therefore, growers should make control plans that could involve tillage and more than one herbicide.
One thing to keep in mind, though, is we have a lot of ALS-resistant ryegrass in the state. So products like Finesse, PowerFlex are not going to be as efficacious as they typically would where resistance is an issue.
Eubank says all growers should use weed control strategies that emphasize multiple methods and materials rather than relying on one herbicide. Now, you can get copies of these control recommendations from your county office of the MSU Extension Service. We'll also have a link on our Farm Week website, farmweek.msucares.com, where you can also download this information.
It's been done in other countries, but now after last week's election, there is one county in the United States where the farmers cannot plant genetically engineered crops or livestock. That place is San Juan County in northwest Washington State. Voters there voted 61% to 39% to ban farmers from growing GMO crops and livestock. San Juan County is not a huge agricultural producer or population center. It is made up of several islands on the Canadian border. And in California, a proposition there failed that would have required food labels notifying consumers if the product contained GMO ingredients. 47% voted for it, 53% voted against it. Many big food and seed companies funded advertising on the proposition. A move is underway to put a similar proposition on the ballot in Washington state next year. Each year at one of the Mississippi State University football games, Mississippi 4-H celebrates the organization's contributions to young people and the community. A 4-H football is even presented in appreciation to a major supporter. Farmweek's Amy Taylor has the story.
Along with celebrating the usual festivities at the Mississippi State University homecoming football game, Mississippi 4-H took an opportunity to recognize the impact 4-H has on the lives of young people. 4-H State Council President Andrew Huff explains the purpose of 4-H Day at MSU Football.
I'm here to promote and tell youth about what 4-H is about, how they can learn through doing, and to promote this organization. And what we're doing here is we're trying to promote 4-H, to show kids what it's really about. We're all here, the leadership team's here to talk to the kids. I would tell them that 4-H is a youth development program, ranging in any projects from leadership to ag sciences to, human sciences, anything like that. So basically, if you want to develop yourself into a future leader, anything, if you want to become a better person, 4-H is for you.
In addition to leadership and human sciences, 4-H offers activities that include almost any interest, such as health and nutrition, public speaking, showing livestock, engineering, computer sciences, and even robotics. Mississippi State University Extension Service 4-H specialist Betty Rawlings says the day was also devoted to honoring a loyal supporter of 4-H.
We're going to present a football to the widow of one of our longtime 4-H volunteers, Mr. Norman Armstrong, who passed away in September, and his widow, Mrs. Lucille Armstrong, is going to be here to accept the football. It's going to mean a lot to her, and it's to honor Mr. Armstrong's more than 47 years of volunteerism with 4-H.
Additionally, 4-H Day involves offering game tickets at a discounted price to be ordered in advance by anyone who wishes to celebrate 4-H and attend the football game. Furthermore, 4-H symbolizes MSU Extension Service's connection to the university. From Mississippi State University, I'm Amy Taylor reporting.
Well, gardeners sometimes have trouble getting a Bougainvillea to flower. Well, in this week's Southern Gardening segment, Extension horticulturist Dr. Gary Bachman says that understanding how it grows can result in great-looking plants.
Many gardeners love the tropical look a flowering Bougainvillea has hanging on the patio or front porch. With a little care, these plants can give many years of enjoyment. One of the most popular ways to grow Bougainvillea in Mississippi is in a hanging basket. Bougainvillea grown in hanging baskets typically have long arching branches, but be careful as you handle the plants because of the long and sharp thorns on the stems. The variegated leaves commonly are heart-shaped. The flowers are actually bracts and are very thin and have a paper-like texture. In fact, sometimes Bougainvillea is called paper flower plant. The white tubular flowers surrounded by the bracts are very prominent features and can add colorful contrast. Best growth is achieved by full sun exposure. These plants are also heavy feeders and will benefit from monthly applications of water-soluble fertilizer. But the plants actually require very little irrigation, so be careful not to overwater in between feedings. Bougainvillea bloom in response to length of day, typically when the days and nights are about equal. This usually corresponds to the spring and fall. This red Bougainvillea sitting on and trailing down the white brick wall is stunning. The flowers are produced in cycles of about 6 weeks, followed by a rest period. Bougainvillea can be pruned any time to keep the plant neat. Pruning after a flowering cycle will encourage branching, which leads to more flowers during the next bloom cycle. Bougainvillea should be brought inside once the temperatures start falling and placed in a window with high light. You may even be rewarded with indoor flowering to brighten the winter months. I'm horticulturist Gary Bachman for Southern Gardening.
Gary says the Bougainvillea is a classic hanging basket whose appeal has not dimmed. And of course, we remember those growing up in Florida. Right. In the feature segment, the International Insect Rearing Workshop. You might think that growing insects is easy until you actually try it. Time now for the markets with Leighton. And Leighton, you say it could be a shift away by consumers as beef supplies tighten?
Chicken and pork may actually pick up market share, as we'll hear in a few minutes. Also ahead this week, a forecast of more soybeans in the pipeline puts pressure on bean prices. A big drop in cattle placements is expected, while a Mississippi-based poultry company's out-of-state expansion remains on hold. We begin by taking a look at the monthly crop and supply-demand numbers from the USDA, reports that turned out to be bearish, especially for soybeans. Extension Ag economist John Michael Riley provided some analysis of how the November 9th numbers could impact grain and oilseed markets. John Michael, a bearish reaction as far as the grain markets to what these new reports had to say. Let's kind of recap corn and soybeans, what the picture is.
We'll start with soybeans, really the leader of this bearish reaction. The market was looking for the total production to be lower than what it actually came in at. Start with yield. Yield projected by USDA 39.3 bushel an acre. Not only was that higher than the average expectation, but it was outside the range of those expectations. That pushed production up just under 3 million bushel an acre. Trade was looking for that to be right at 2.9 billion bushels an acre, or total billion bushels of production. So a larger total supply of soybeans than what was initially expected, and that put a lot of pressure on prices that day. Corn, mostly a neutral report, not a whole lot of changes really anywhere in production or in use. 122.3 bushel per acre. That's slightly higher than what it was a month ago. Production 10.75 billion bushels. Again, close to where we were at last month, but prices were suppressed largely due to some spillover from soybeans. So for the most part, beans really led the news on the report.
And as we were talking off camera, this is good news as far as the livestock sector, in that soybean meal prices should come down. That's right. We've already seen prices start to drift lower, and that's definitely going to, as you go through the pipeline, that's going to lower those prices. Soybean meal, soybean oil, all those uses should be lower, which should be a relief for our livestock producers. And as far as the export picture for soybeans, what's that looking like? Well, there weren't a whole lot of changes on exports, beans or corn. We have seen the dollar strengthen, and there has been some reaction as a result of that. But in terms of the big picture for the whole year, this mostly has been isolated in terms of the whole crop marketing year. Not a whole lot of changes yet. If the dollar continues to strengthen, that might be a different story, though. And as far as soybean prices, unless we see some situation change with this South American crop, that would be one way that prices might come back up. Well, we're starting to see stories of higher production in South America, and that's probably going to keep pressure on, but that's going to be what we're keying. And as far as corn outlook for prices, probably going to stay in this trend as far as corn? Well, again, those are going to be tied together, soybeans and corn, but for the most part, yes. Pecans are an important part of the upcoming holidays, and it is the subject of our trivia quiz this week. How much of the world's pecan supply is produced in the United States? The answer is one of these: 48%, or 67%, or 80%, or 95%. You'll find out here in a few more minutes. We're going to pause for a short break on Farm Week. Coming up, we'll look at the calendar and the second part of the markets. Leighton Spann reports there are fewer cattle on feed, and Mississippi's largest poultry producer makes its plans known. In the feature segment today, most of us try to get rid of insects, but these people actually want to grow them.
Prepared? I'd better be. After all, paying attention to details is what makes the difference. The more preparation and planning time I invest, the more successful and enjoyable the outcome. For everyone. I know everything can't be perfect. I don't expect it to be, but the time and effort I spent pays off when the unexpected happens. So yes, I prepared for my marriage until death do us part. Prepare for your marriage.
Before we get back to the markets, let's look at the Farmweek calendar. The Mississippi Fruit and Vegetable Growers Association and the Mississippi Agritourism Conference and Trade Show are coming up at the end of the month. That's Wednesday and Thursday, November 28th and 29th. Location is the Hilton Hotel on County Line Road in Jackson. Registration fees do apply. Sessions will be tailored to both produce growers and those with agritourism operations. A tomato grafting workshop along with a tasting reception featuring food grown by the participants will be on the agenda. Well, now, landowners with wild pig problems should attend the Managing Wild Pig Damage in Mississippi workshop. It takes place Tuesday, December 4th at the MSU Central Mississippi Research and Extension Center. That's on Seven Springs Road at Raymond. You'll learn about the biology, the legalities, and some methods to control wild pigs. You'll also learn about their potential impacts on humans and livestock. Go to our Farm Week website at farmweek.msucares.com for information on these and other events. Now check out this week's Farm Week Snapshot.
We're recording about 24 hours before the release of the monthly cattle on feed numbers from the USDA. Brownfield Ag News reports analysts on average expect the data to show a big year-to-year drop in cattle placements. Marketings, meanwhile, are expected to increase slightly. In the hog sector, demand for pork is being described as stable here in mid-November. Analyst Walt Hackney believes expected higher retail prices for beef by next spring will only serve to strengthen the demand at the meat counter for pork as well as chicken.
Anytime we can maintain a stable demand for pork, killing 2.3 million hogs a week, 435,000 head a day, anytime those projections are laying out like that, the demand is really there and pork is really able to compete. It'll come down to, what do you prefer? Do you prefer a poultry dinner, or do you prefer a pork dinner, or does it make any difference? If it doesn't make any difference, they'll both run a photo finish. If it makes a difference, that'll be the one that wins the race. And pork is probably not quite the contender as we'd like to see it.
Laurel-based Sanderson Farms announced this week that Nash County, North Carolina will not be the site for that company's new poultry processing complex due to various timing issues. CEO Joe Frank Sanderson Jr. says plans for a new plant anywhere are on hold. The company says that market fundamentals, including the supply and price of corn and other feed grains, must improve before a new complex is built anywhere. Well, before our new feature story, here's the trivia answer for this week. The right choice is C. The U.S. produces about 80% of the world's pecans.
In our feature segment today, we've all heard of the term child rearing. Well, Farm Week's Amy Taylor is going to tell us about insect rearing.
Artists, for those who raise insects, whether it's for research or other purposes, the Insect Rearing Center at Mississippi State University is the place to go for information. The history of insect rearing at MSU dates back 40 years. Because the center successfully produces millions of insects for agricultural, crop research, and other purposes, entomologists and researchers travel from around the world to claim their highly coveted spots at the annual International Insect Rearing Workshop. To most of us, insects are just bugs, but to Mississippi State University entomologist Dr. Frank Davis and other researchers, insects are an essential part of our lives and food sources. Over the past 40 years, insect rearing at MSU has developed into a program recognized worldwide. Dr. Davis elaborates on various types of insect rearing.
For instance, crickets and mealworms and all for the pet food industry. Okay, they rear that type of insect, all right? There are people in the agricultural area that rear bollworms. They rear tarnished plant bugs that are all on cotton and all of the other Lepidoptera that feed on soybeans and corn. So you have that group that are growing pest insects to do research on to come up with solutions to them. And then you've got the butterfly people, and they rear them for school children, education. They also rear them for weddings.
In addition, certain insects like the black soldier fly are being considered as healthy food sources for catfish. Particularly, Dr. Davis' research has involved rearing the southwestern corn borer, cotton boll weevil, and later other insects such as the fall armyworm, corn earworm, and the tobacco budworm for developing plants' resistance to these pests, as well as pesticide and herbicide research. Developing insect-resistant crop seed and making it available to farmers and seed companies helps maximize the health of crops like corn, cotton, and soybeans. The healthier the plant, the more abundant our crops and food sources will be. With this in mind, Davis and other researchers thought of the idea to develop a formal insect rearing center.
In the year 1999, we got together and began to plan an insect rearing center concept. And we had been around the world, some of us. I had been to places all over the world, helping them with their corn work, helping them with their rearing program. And we began to realize, well, there's no formal education, even in entomology departments, anywhere that we are aware of in the world, that teaches people how to rear insects.
The Insect Rearing Center at Mississippi State University is quite a unique facility. Insects such as the southwestern corn borer, fall armyworm, and tobacco budworm are reared from larvae to pupa to adult. First, the larvae are actually placed into their food source, a diet specially formulated at the center. They're housed in a room where temperature and humidity are strictly monitored, and once they reach pupa stage, they're placed in a new area where they grow into adults. Dr. Davis says knowing the facility was likely the only one of its kind in the world is what sparked the idea for an international workshop. So in 2000, the intensive 5-day workshop titled Principles and Procedures for Rearing High-Quality Insects, designed to cover all major areas of lab rearing insects and offered on a worldwide basis, was born. Tom Riddell, air filtration specialist with Air Filter Sales and Services in Jackson, says his discussion focused on how air filtration is connected to insect rearing.
I'm not an entomologist. I am a crow teaching with eagles. But there are so many more beneficial items they're finding out today with different research facilities, but they have to be able to know the basics of cleanliness, diet preparation, how to house them properly, and then not harm the people who are doing the research. What I talk to them about is the effective movement of air and the capture of particles within the air so that we can have a cleaner environment. That way they are reducing the probabilities of viruses and bacteria on the subject insects.
Clean air is such a high priority that the facility uses the same type of air cleaning system that you see in hospitals. Additionally, workshop participants were educated about pathology issues such as fungi, bacteria, viruses, protozoan infections in Microsporidia, and parasites. Additionally, Gary Needham, entomologist with Syngenta in the United Kingdom, talks about how insect rearing relates to his line of research.
I rear pest insects for research into crop protection. I look for potential chemicals that could be used in insecticide and pesticide products. Our aim is to bring plant potential to life, so we look for various ways to get more out of less, basically. I mean, the population is growing, the land space we have to grow these crops to feed the ever-increasing world population is getting smaller, so we need to get more from the plant.
Needham says he'll use what he's learned, such as temperature and humidity control, when he goes back to his own laboratory. In addition to insect rearing for plant research, Tom Riddell says it's also practiced to be used for pharmaceutical research.
There's good molds and fungi that can be grown. There's very good, lot of protein that comes out of certain types of insects. And so the pharmacies are now determining which insects and colonies that need to be promoted and grown in order to produce more products that are beneficial to the health of people around the world, especially third world countries. You can pull molds and viruses off of them. You can find out what causes disease, how it's transported.
With the vital role insects play in our environment, Dr. Frank Davis and Gary Needham say our world would not survive without insects.
What would happen to us if we lost all of our pollinating insects? Well, you would not be able to grow certain plant crops. And that's why the honeybee is so important to the United States, and that's why they're spending so much money trying to make sure that we don't lose our honeybees.
Insect pollination contributes to over $130 billion into the crop business, into the crop industry a year. They contribute to about 2/3 of the food we put on our plate. And if they disappeared tomorrow, within a matter of months, we'd be starving to death.
In the 12 years of successful international insect rearing workshops, Dr. Frank Davis says the event has become so popular, it's sold out every year. As many as 25 participants from one company have attended the workshop to gain knowledge in those 9 areas that are so important to successfully rearing insects. From Mississippi State University, I'm Amy Taylor reporting.
Good job, Amy. And we will have a link to the Insect Rearing Center on our website. Well, we are at the end of Farm Week for this week. On our next show, it's a holiday edition of Farm Week.
We'll be returning to Mississippi's top junior livestock show, the Dixie National Sale of Junior Champions.
Making ethanol from corn isn't new, but making it to drink in Iowa is. They're using local grain to do it.
In southern gardening, the Montego Snapdragon. The Snapdragon excels in the cool season garden.
With the rest of the Farm Week crew, I'm Artis Ford.
And I'm Leighton Spann. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next week.